TeraFlex's new dual-rate ST sway bar will do three things for us. First off, it will eliminate the need to go through the dreaded process of crawling under your Jeep and prying off the disconnect links every time you hit the trail. Second, no matter the size or even the brand of your lift, the ST sway bar will dramatically increase on-road handling and stability. Last of all, the dual rate means you will have increased side heel stability, even in disconnect mode. Let's start with removing the two tow hooks. Use a 55 Torx bit. On the bottom of the bumper, you'll find two more bolts. They use the same 55 Torx. Pull off the bumper and remove the sway bar links at the axle. In this case, we're removing a quick disconnect link system. Don't bother unbolting the link from the sway bar. It's all getting replaced. The sway bar has an attractive plastic cover over it. Remove the two 10mm bolts on each end. With the cover off, you'll see the two mounting bushings on the sway bar. They're held on by a couple of bolts. I don't know what size they are, just take them out. With those bolts out, the sway bar will just pull right off. Now, if there's any mounting hardware remaining from previous disconnect systems, just make it gone. Next up, let's remove the forwardmost steering gear mounting bolt. And we're going to replace it with the supplied bolt. We need that additional clearance that the new bolt will provide. Grab the two crossmember bushings from the kit and grease them up. That'll help us with install. Now, any grease will do, but something that's water resistant or even synthetic will work great. The bushings should be tight in the tube, just so they don't rattle. If yours seems loose, with the bushing installed, we can use a chisel or punch and just tap the outer top edge of the crossmember tube in a bit until that bushing feels snug. There's really no other way to say this. Just really lube up the center bushing and the shaft. Push the shaft all the way in. Now you may need a little help. If so, use a dead blow hammer or a rubber hammer until the splines are exposed on both sides of the frame. With the torsion bar centered in the bushings, you'll notice a paint pen mark that will be used to index the two shafts. Start on the passenger side and install the large spacer ring. Next, slide the spline shaft bushing onto the inner torsion bar. Make sure that the painted marks are still aligned. Just start the cap screw bolt. The passenger side arm also has an indexing mark on it. Line up the marks and install the arm. Move to the driver's side and install the inner short arm, and once again, align those paint marks. It's the same drill on the driver's outer arm. Align the paint marks and install it. With everything loosely installed, start all the arm bolts and snug them up, just so that the shaft can still move while we do the final shaft alignment. A little Loctite never hurts. There's a couple of large flat washers that will be installed on the outer ends of the torsion bar. The washer has a recess cut in it that needs to be aligned with the indexing cut on the shaft. It's imperative that Loctite is used on these bolts. Loosely tighten the bolt until the washer slot indexes in the torsion bar and move to the other side. Use the same process to install the retaining washer on the driver's side. With the bolts and washers installed and the washers indexed with the shaft, tighten both end cap bolts to 45 foot-pounds. Move to the Swaybar arm bolts and use a 9/16 end wrench and socket. Tighten them up. Move back and forth between the bolts and gradually increase the torque on each bolt. These need to be tight, 45 foot-pounds. Also recheck them after about 500 to 1,000 miles. Tighten the cap screw bolt. It's a 13/16 Allen. Use Loctite and install the disconnect knob assembly. It needs to be tight. Apply the street and trail sticker. Take a second and just step back and admire your work. Cycle that knob a couple of times. Wipe some grease in where that pin slides into the inner hole. We finally completed the lubing of bushings and inserting of spline shafts into holes portion of our install. Let's move on to the link assembly. Make sure the jam nuts are installed on the link ends before threading the joint into the sleeves. When we assemble the links, there's a left and a right hand threaded end on each link. The sleeve and the link have a small notch cut in them around the ends just to indicate the left-hand thread. Now, it wouldn't hurt to put some grease on the link threads for easier adjustment. With the links assembled, use some grease. It'll help with the misalignment spacer install. Now, these spacers are really tough to install without a vise. With a vise, it's a piece of cake. Start the spacers on each end of the bushing and press them in with the vise. Use Loctite when installing the links in the arms as well as on the axle. Use the outermost hole on the Swaybar arm when installing the links. The disconnect knob in the street position. With the Jeep setting level on the ground, install one axle side link bolt. With one link completely installed, move to the other side and use the adjusting sleeves on the links to align the remaining link bolt for install. Verify that the disconnect knob will engage and disengage with ease. Adjust the links as needed. Reinstall the front bumper and tow hooks. Caution: if you're going to use the stock or factory bolt without the tow hooks, you'll need to grind or trim about 1/4 of an inch off that inner bolt. A couple of washers will also do the trick, just so that that bolt doesn't extend so far down that it makes contact with the Swaybar bushing. If you're planning on keeping your tow hooks, it's all good. Just put the bolts in. Oh wait, here's another pearl of wisdom. If you ever need to lube the bushings, remove that inner bolt and just pour some oil down into the bolt hole. Our engineers have cleverly left a drilled hole in the bushing that will gain access for the oil to get into that bushing and lube it up. I don't know, it's just the TeraFlex way.